What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 68 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Monday, April 14th, 2025. I'm your host, Zach Malamo. Before we get started, please subscribe below. Follow all of my social accounts. Let's start things off in the world of baseball as both New York teams were in action this weekend. Let's start things off with the New York Mets after they complete a series win over the Athletics out in Sacramento. An 8-0 cap-off victory on Sunday afternoon for New York, and this one was all Mets throughout when it came to the pitching from Kodai Senga at the beginning of the game. He went 7 innings strong, 4 hits allowed, no earned runs, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. The Ghost Fork was working tremendously in this one, and then Luis Torrens got the party going in the 6th inning. He went 3 for 4 on the day, but had that 2-out RBI single to bring in Pete Alonso and give the Mets a 1-0 lead in the top of the 6th. And from then on out, it was all Mets. They had 4 runs in the 9th inning in the top of the 9th, and that really closed out the victory, which was already really closed out earlier in the game. Francisco Lindor got in on the action with a RBI double as well in the 7th. Mark Vientos looked a lot better in this game, had an RBI double, also had an RBI walk with the bases loaded to bring in a run. So, I mean, the Mets offense and the Mets lineup look pretty strong in this series. And then you're also looking at the rotation saying, yeah, these guys really continue to step up. It was the longest outing for a starting pitcher this season for the Mets, 7 innings. So that's something that probably Mets fans and the Mets faithful are hoping gets better as the season goes on. They're hoping from some length from these starters, and obviously that's been a talking point in the last week or so. And even the Mets pitchers themselves, the Mets starters, had a conversation about that and knowing that they really have to go probably 6 innings at least to really help out this bullpen, who they can't throw out guys there every single day. They got to give them a little bit of rest, and that's going to come down to how well this starting rotation is pitching. But they looked really strong this weekend once again. It came down to a win on Friday, a 7-6 win, which got a little close in the end. When you look at Edwin Diaz in the 9th inning, almost blew that lead, but they closed things out. A 7-6 win on Friday, and then a loss on Saturday where the bats really were just not apparent there and did not come out strong. JT Ginn, a former Met prospect, really shut things down for the A's on one side, and then obviously Brandon Nimmo had that home run, but that was really it. The Mets did have 5 hits on the day, but none really spectacular or trying to help this lineup get anything on the board. So the Athletics win that one 3-1 on Saturday, but what a bounce back on Sunday afternoon. And give credit to this Mets lineup. They really knew that they needed to show up in the later innings of this one, and they did so very well. And they come out with a series win once again. The Mets, the only team in Major League Baseball to not lose back-to-back games yet this season. They've continued to bounce back after a loss each and every time, and that's a real positive sign for this Mets team that sits 10-5 right now in first place in the NL East. I know it's early, but obviously the early signs are really good ones for this Mets pitching rotation, and even when the lineup falls asleep a little bit, they know that they can rely on this rotation and as well as the bullpen to really step up in the absence of those bats. And even when the bats are playing well, the pitching rotation has been really strong, and they figured out ways to win in all kinds of ways, and that's really helped the Mets up to their 10-5 record. So this one's an interesting one as they head now to Minnesota, and they continue on this road trip, the 6-game road trip that they have until they head back to Citi Field later this week. But now they have a 3-game set against the Minnesota Twins. 7:40 start tonight. It's going to be Clay Holmes against Joe Ryan as those two battle it out in Minnesota. And when you look at the Twins, they have been really poor so far this season. 2-4 on their home field, a 5-11 record right now in the AL Central. Then you have tomorrow's matchup between McGill and Ober, and that one starts at 7:40, and then they finish things off the rubber game of the 3-game set, where you look at Canning against Festa, a 1:10 start on Wednesday afternoon. The Mets looking pretty strong right now and looking for another series win. Could be a pretty easy one, you would say, here with how bad Minnesota has looked so far this season. But the Mets cannot let up here. They continue to try and win games, and they got some top-notch starters on the mound. Couple of their top guys on the mound the next couple of days in Holmes and McGill, who have been really strong so far this season. So make sure you tune in tonight, 7:40 start, as the Mets travel to Minneapolis to take on the Minnesota Twins tonight with Holmes and Ryan on the mound, respectively. When you look at the other side of New York and up in the Bronx, the Yankees came home for a weekend series against the San Francisco Giants, and it was pretty disappointing in the end. When you look at the Yankees overall in this one, the pitching was not fantastic in this series, you would have to say. Stroman came out really slow on Friday. The game was rained out in the end, ended in 6 innings with the Giants with a 9-1 lead at the time, and that was the final score, final 6 innings. Like I said, when you look at Saturday, though, the bats started to wake up even with the rain happening. Will Warren looked pretty strong and got his first win as a major league pitcher. Took a little bit longer than expected, as he's been in the league for almost a year and a half now, but he did look very strong. Only 2 earned runs allowed. Yankees were really able to get to Jordan Hicks in this one, and 8 hits with 7 earned runs, and they really got the bats going in that one on Saturday afternoon. So some positive signs that heading into Sunday with Carlos Rodon on the mound looking to cap off the series win for the Yankees, and they lose their second consecutive series with a 5-4 loss to San Francisco yesterday. Rodon looked very, very strong in this one. However, he left 2 breaking balls up in the zone, and Jung-Hoo Lee, who's been red hot this season so far for the San Francisco Giants, he's 3rd in the MLB in OPS this season, behind just Aaron Judge and Pete Alonso, and Jung-Hoo Lee made Carlos Rodon pay for those breaking balls. Like I said, up in the zone, and 2 mistakes from Rodon completely ruins his day. Only 3 hits allowed in this game, but 2 of those hits went for home runs for Lee, and that's the difference in the end. They also got another run, the Giants did, on an error by Paul Goldschmidt. Chisholm tried to crawl the Yankees back into this one with a solo shot in the bottom of the 8th, but Aaron Judge strikes out looking, and Ryan Walker gets the save for the Giants, who close out yet another series, and they've looked very, very strong. I talked about it on the previous episode, how good the NL West looks this year, and what a dangerous division that'll be in the National League this season, and really some worrying signs for some other teams in the National League this season. When you look at this series, though, the Yankees could have easily won this one if their pitching was just up to par. Stroman lays an egg on Friday. Rodon does not help you out with those 2 home runs that really were the difference in the game on Sunday. And now the Yankees have to bounce back. They have a tough series coming up against a team that they really are familiar with when it comes to last season and the postseason last year. An ALDS rematch against the Kansas City Royals starting tonight at 7:05. It's going to be Carlos Carrasco once again on the mound, facing off against Seth Lugo. Lugo is 1-1 this season with a 3.24 ERA. Carrasco also 1-1, but the ERA all the way up at 7.71, and that's due to getting beaten up, against the Detroit Tigers in the previous series. So the Yankees need to bounce back strong tonight. They take on a tough Kansas City Royals team that's middle of the pack right now, sitting at 8-8 out of the AL Central. So we'll see what happens, but make sure you tune in later, 7:05, as Lugo against Carrasco in the Bronx as the Royals take on the Yankees. When you look at the NBA, and let's switch things there, as the New York Knicks were in action yesterday, a 113-105 victory over the Brooklyn Nets, and the Knicks finish off the regular season strong, 51-31 is their record in the Eastern Conference. They close out that 3 seed and lock down that 3 seed. They take on the Detroit Pistons, who will be their first round matchup. A tough series it's going to be for the New York Knicks, and those two teams facing off know each other well and played just a couple of days ago, and Detroit came out with a victory up in Detroit. So this one should be interesting, but the Knicks are obviously the home team, and they get the home court advantage for the first two games of this 7-game set. When you look at this series, though, I think the Knicks really have to hone in on locking down Cade Cunningham. It's going to come down to whether they lock down Cade Cunningham and really control the boards as well down low. Detroit's got a lot of bigs down there, specifically Jalen Duren, who's caused a lot of chaos in the NBA so far this season, averaging just over 10 rebounds a game. And when you look at Cade Cunningham as well, the scoring that comes from him really gets this Pistons team rolling. But the Knicks are going to be back healthy, you would hope. They continue to stay healthy, you would hope. When it comes to postseason time in recent years, it has not been a recipe for success for the New York Knicks, who have fallen countless amount of times due to injuries, especially last year once OG Anunoby went down. But they get Jalen Brunson back, and this one should be a great series. We'll talk more about it on Thursday's episode, as game one between the Knicks and the Pistons taking place 6 o'clock on Saturday night. But when you look at the rest of the NBA playoffs, let's preview a bit of the play-in games, as we have 4 of them in the next couple of days. Start off with tomorrow, Tuesday, with 7:30 starts in the Eastern Conference. You got the Orlando Magic at home. They are the 7 seed taking on the 8 seed Atlanta Hawks. This one should be a great matchup, and Orlando comes in as 5.5-point favorites, total sitting at 216.5 right now on Monday afternoon. And then you look at the other matchup between the Grizzlies and the Warriors out at the Chase Center in San Francisco. Very interesting, with the Grizzlies firing Taylor Jenkins just a couple of weeks ago, and now heading into the postseason, fell all the way down to the 8th seed in the Western Conference, which is just an absolute gauntlet so far this NBA season. I'm going to pick the Magic to beat the Hawks at the Kia Center down in Orlando. And I'm actually going to pick the Grizzlies to beat the Warriors. I think Ja Morant can come up big here and come out with a victory. That's going to be a very tough game, I feel, for the Warriors, even though they are 6.5-point favorites. In this one, I do believe that when you look at, even with the injuries for this Grizzlies team, they do have a lot of real strong players, and I think they're going to come out strong against the Warriors. When you look at the bigs down low, Zach Edey, as well as Jaren Jackson Jr., and then you got the guys up top in Desmond Bane, as well as Ja Morant, who always comes up big in primetime, it seems. When you look at those 4 guys or so, I think they're going to cause Golden State trouble on Tuesday night, but we'll see what happens. Make sure you tune into Tuesday night's games, and then you'll see on Wednesday night the answer here, and really that's going to lead to an exciting Friday matchup between all of those teams, and whether those teams lose or win, they go to the 8 seed game. The loser of that game goes to the 8 seed, and then they play the winner of the 9 and 10 place games, which those will be quite interesting. And looking at the first one on Wednesday evening, 7:30 start between the Miami Heat and the Chicago Bulls. A little bit of lower records here, 37-45 the Heat were this season, and the Bulls sit at 39-43, but have ended the season real strong, and they are also playing at home at the United Center in Chicago, Illinois. And for that reason, I believe the Bulls come in as 1.5-point favorites, total sitting at 218.5. This one should be a real interesting game. Like I said, the Bulls have been real strong so far this season, and obviously they've been strong at the end of the season, excuse me. This should be interesting how Miami bounces back. Not the same Miami team that we've seen year after year. However, I do believe the Heat win this game. The experience that they have over a team like Chicago, who really has minimal playoff experience, a lot of these guys on this roster, I do believe Miami comes out with a win. It's just in the Heat identity, the Heat culture identity, to come out with a win in the postseason, even if they probably won't go far so far in this postseason. We'll see what happens, but make sure you tune into that one at 7:30, and then the nightcap at 10 o'clock is going to be a great one. It's the Dallas Mavericks, the 10 seed right now in the Western Conference, taking on the 9-seeded Sacramento Kings at the Golden One Center out in Sacramento, California. When you look at this game, Sacramento comes in as 4.5-point favorites, total sitting at 215.5. Of course, when you look at the Mavericks, it's all going to come down to injury. A lot of game time decisions. Anthony Davis, Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, Derek Lively, and of course, Kyrie Irving is out for the season. For that reason, I do believe that Sacramento comes out with the win here. I know that it's not the same Sacramento team that we saw just a year ago, and guys like De'Aaron Fox are not there anymore. When you look at the other guys, though, and Malik Monk's going to be out for this one, but when you look at Domantas Sabonis, he's been real strong so far this season, and I think he can come up with a big-time victory along with DeMar DeRozan, the experience there of DeRozan on this Kings roster. I think that's going to be the difference maker over a really not healthy Dallas Mavericks team in the postseason this year. So that should be an interesting one as well. And make sure you tune into that one. 10 o'clock on Wednesday night. And that's going to be a great game between the Dallas Mavericks and the Sacramento Kings. So make sure you tune into all of those games, the play-in games coming up next couple days, and we'll probably recap all of them and look forward to the NBA postseason, which will start at the weekend. It's finally here. Playoff basketball is back once again, and we'll have all of it for you in the next couple of episodes. So make sure you tune into all of those. But for now, that will do it for episode 68 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Malum. Thanks for watching, and talk to you all on Thursday.